The next panel is again going to be addressing the same focus areas. And this panel we have Bipin Pendyala, Senior Director and General Manager India, Appen, moderate the session. Hitesh, Hiran, Co-founder and Director, Greenifit. Arun, Murugesh, Vice President, Sales and Marketing, Sahas Zero Waste. N. Chandrasekhar, Founder, Director, JBiofuels. Rohit, Founder and CEO, Zodia. Vivek Verma, Strategic Advisor and Venture Partner, Silver Needle Ventures. Ganges Reddy, MD and CEO, Blue Drop and VRAW. Shrikant Badiga, Group Director, Phoenix Group.
So we again have a set of accomplished corporate leaders and accomplished startup entrepreneurs as well. One interesting thing that we've seen when we're doing this event planning is and curating is that we do actually have, while we're calling them as startups, the reality is that each one of them have actually established themselves in a reasonably decent fashion and in a sweet spot. So what I'd like to do is that the data that they've presented to us for the curation process and the areas that they're operating in, I would like to bring out some of the essence more through a dialogue, right? So let me start with Hiten, right? Hiten's company is actually in a very interesting space where I felt Hiten. Not only are they looking at carbon credits, right? Which is, in some sense, carbon credits is nice because I can show my balance sheet to the corporate saying that I'm net zero, carbon neutral. But the reality is that I'm actually not carbon neutral, I'm actually buying. I'm paying for it, right? So Hiten's company actually has gone the next step, which is where they're able to create a framework where the corporates can constantly review, assess, understand what their carbon footprint is. Not only buying carbon credits, but actually kind of constantly monitor, track, and reduce. So Hiten, I'd like to understand, when you do talk to corporates, right? There is probably higher tendency for people to just buy the credits. It looks nice on the balance sheet. But how much is the traction you're getting when people are serious about actually reducing the carbon footprint? What has been your take so far in terms of your conversations with your customers and how much of a mind shift change are you seeing?
Thank you. So I would just like to touch the topic differently. So carbon credits comes at the last. Yeah. Because now it is a voluntary market and it is not enforceable that you should buy the carbon credits. And value is not that much. Okay. The point is that we all are concerned about saving the environment. We all wish to contribute to environment and reduce the carbon emissions that we have. However, what my journey in the 10 years plus in this industry that we have seen, exactly what you pointed out, how much serious the companies are. If we see around, we all know and we talk about climate change, etc., but the real adoption level is very low. And one of the major reasons is what I believe, and from my experience working in industry, is that as a human tendency, if there is something which has no monetary or strategic incentives aligned with whatever the actions that we take, then anything we tend not to be serious about to pursue it or commit to it, besides just a vocal support. And this is exactly where, if we make a change and what we try to explain to the companies is that climate solution can be a investable market. It's an investable assets. And I'll just cite an example of one of my assignment as a consultant for ADB. I had the opportunity to meet many industries in the Rajasthan. 70 plus association and industries, I had interviewed them. And I've seen many companies getting closed down because of NGT ruling of effluent treatment plant not being given to that. Balotra 800 plus industries was closed down. I had opportunity to see Ramki Group's one of the initiatives for one association where it was working fantastically well in Udaipur region. And that is in 2015 I was talking about. But if you see the cost of getting the business closed down, many business losing, okay, that is a cost. So now if you see that the climate solution is seen to be from the decarbonization as an investable market, there adoption becomes very easy. So this is where Greenifit has born. to help people, society, organizations to embark the journey of decarbonization in a profitable manner and in a responsible manner. And this is what our journey, we did the pilot, and now we are getting a good traction. We are currently managing a Greenifit is a distributed climate solution platform. Currently, we are managing a distributed climate asset under management of 11 crore and above, and generating revenue worth 3 crore last year. So this testamount to that, okay, there is a people are becoming aware about it. And it is not only the companies, because if you see the companies like to allocate the resources very carefully, financial, because the major problem with the climate solution is the capital intensive nature. So one of the model that Ramki Group has pioneered is public-private partnerships. There are other models of asset-light solution, private-private partnerships, something that can be done. And this is where sharing of carbon credit, the sharing of the savings can be done. So it is a win-win for all. And this is where we've seen in the recent months that the people are started accepting these climate assets as an alternate investment asset class. And
sorry to interrupt. On that thought, something came to mind. See, for example, till recent past, right? Until the government of India made CSR 2% of profits is mandatory, it was not a topic that was discussed in the boardrooms, except for some of the really large philanthropic founder-led companies. So from your experience, do you think if a regulatory framework is brought in where the government mandates that probably a certain percentage of your profit needs to go plowed back into investment on the green side, do you think that will encourage and create a larger fillip in terms of the Go Green initiatives in the corporate world?
So that is the one which would be, and I think CSR mandate is already including the sustainability and environment field. We are doing one for Pidilite industry, implementing a solution for a hospital through their CSR fund for solar and making it asset light. We have done the similar for education institution run by Birlas. We have done the longest contract for them. The point here is that one is the regulatory interventions, that is the one side, but the larger impact will come if I tell you, you invest into the solar, though let's say as a scope 2 emissions mitigation, and or don't invest into solar yourself, but invest into someone else's project. You get the carbon credits, you reduce your cost of electricity, you need not pay extra certain amount to DISCOM or your grid to become a green tech. You can still become a green tech. And as Dr. said in a previous panel, there is a limitation. Every state has how much electricity you can consume through solar when you are consuming directly. But when you're going to embark the journey of the greener investment through CSR, through any other means, okay, there is no limit on how much energy you can buy. That is indirect manner of doing it. And this is what we are trying to enable for companies to embark on a journey, mitigate the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 reduction directly or indirectly.
Got it. Thank you very much. I'll move on to you, Arun. You know, you're working on what is called a zero waste, right? But in a practical sense, is zero waste even is it a theoretical concept, or is actually practically possible for a household or a community or a company or a larger industry segment to actually shoot for zero waste? And if so, what has been your experience in terms of building towards or marching towards a zero waste opportunity?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. I think the word zero waste is definitely possible. When we say zero waste, it truly does not mean 100% recovery. Even 95% recovery can lead to zero waste. So where we're coming from is, as a waste management organization, been working in this space for more than a decade now, we've actually experimented very fundamentally strong models like decentralized models. Decentralized models works very well in India. And when we say decentralized, for example, the waste coming out of this campus can be solved within this campus itself. It's very possible. How do we do this? First and foremost, fundamental, there's a nice tagline here. Once you mix it, you can't fix it. So let's say the organic waste and the inorganic waste is mixed in one bin. You can't do anything about it. It's not recoverable. But then when you follow the fundamentals of segregation at source, you can actually keep it aside. Now the organic waste can become compost, biogas, etc. The inorganic waste can actually be recovered. As less as 5%, we've shown this through data, as less as 5% can actually go to landfill. And that's very truly moving into the zero waste space. So as a concept, we know decentralized works, and while we are doing this, I think just to add another layer onto just the traditional waste management that we're talking about, there's also another aspect around how well are we doing it. Zero waste is fine. How better can we do this further? So, for instance, let's talk about compliances, be it labor compliances, social security benefits. We're talking about environmental compliances. So that's the next level as we go further. So like we heard on the earlier panel, ESG is no more, it's more like a vanilla version. You now have standards like BRSR, which is taking it to the next level. So zero waste as well can be taken to the next level. We've proven this. We have multiple models on the ground as well. Entrepreneurship as well is definitely something that can come up through the space, because we need a services industry. Waste management is as simple as a housekeeping equivalent. The facility management companies, as a service is provided for various institutions or campuses, waste management also can be.
But Arun, one quick sort of segue into that. Like you rightly said, waste itself is not homogeneous, right? It's pretty heterogeneous. And therefore, for you to be able to help your customers march towards a zero waste, right? How big an ecosystem do you need? And how many kind of, logistics or supply chains that you have to work with in terms of partnerships? And how strong is a partnership required versus a single entity trying to say we can get to zero waste?
I think the key here is ecosystem. It's actually quite a complex ecosystem. When you look at the supply chain, waste can sound very simple, but then it can be as complicated as getting into hundreds of categories that comes out of one bin. So one bin of dry waste or inorganic waste that you see out here is actually the source of waste, right? So the entire supply chain that exists from, if you follow the life cycle of waste, it goes from here, it goes to a center, a collection center. From there, it goes to a larger, like a Ramki typically runs, like a materials recovery facility, which is more like a factory for waste management. From there, you probably have 50 categories. So the waste in one bin separates into 50 categories. Further, it goes to value creation centers where you take plastics, for example. Plastics are of two types, right? We know rigids and flexibles. We didn't know that rigid plastics and the plastic covers, the two categories, can further be sorted into as many as 100 categories. So you can see the large tree that is growing out of one bin, and it's growing into hundreds of categories. So I would say it's an ecosystem which is categorized as upstream and downstream. Upstream, you also have the informal sector, the waste pickers, the kabadiwalas, the aggregators, and all the way downstream, you have recyclers. It could be paper, it could be metal, it could be any category. And furthermore, to close the loop with circular economy, you really want to bring that back into the loop. So now you see you're actually extending the reverse logistics and combining it with forward logistics. I would say it's a very complex ecosystem, and there is too much room for as many entrepreneurs in this space as well.
Wonderful, and thank you. I'll come back and circle on one. I'll move to Chandrasekhar, because it's a nice segue that we talked about zero waste, and I know your company has been very focused in terms of converting organic waste into biofuels, right? So interestingly, when you talk about organic waste to biofuels, and each one of us look at a tremendous amount of organic waste every day. You look at any of the tech campus that we are around, by the end of 3 p.m. in the afternoon, the cafeteria has a humongous amount of organic waste, right? You look at any Raitu Bazaru in the city, or you look at any of the weekly vegetable markets that are there in various areas, the next day morning, GHMC is trying to clear out, maybe hundreds of kgs of rotten vegetables or thrown away vegetables and fruits, right? So in terms of, okay, let me just step back and say, for you, getting your input should not be a problem because there's too much input available. So I think the problem is, how are you ensuring that you are able to track the inputs and then convert the fuel into fuel, and then who are your consumers? So where do you sell it?
Yeah, thank you, Bipin Garu. So I want to quickly introduce first myself. I'm Chandrasekhar, founder of JBiofuels. Thank you, HYSEA T-Hub, for this opportunity. And it was I'm very fortunate to listen from pioneer in waste management, Ram Reddy Garu, to listen his story. It's a great inspiration for entrepreneurs like us. So, yeah, coming back onto the problem that my startup is solving, we are based out of Hyderabad. So, organic waste is a big problem. It's a big problem. If food waste is considered as a country, it is the third largest emissions of carbon. So that is a big problem, coming from food waste. If food waste ends up in landfills, it releases methane emissions. And the methane is very dangerous than the carbon dioxide gas. So even in our country, out of 60 million tons of municipal solid waste that is generated, 50% is food waste, organic waste. Right now, majority of that is ending up in landfills. And in landfill, it releases methane emissions. So recently, whether it is in New Delhi or whether it is in Kochi, the landfill had a fire problem. Why is that? Because methane is a flammable gas and it causes a lot of fire. So it's a very, very big problem because 50% is food waste. But because of lack of awareness and lack of business models available or lack of policy, biofuel policy not there, till now all this waste is ended up in landfills. But now Government of India has launched biofuel policy. With that, the business model is being developed and we can generate biofuel, and the biofuel can be consumed as a transport fuel. So like example, CNG is there, which is a fossil fuel source. Instead of CNG, which is, by the way, we are importing that. That's again, foreign exchange loss is there. Energy security issue is also there. Instead, this 30 million ton can be converted into biofuel. It will reduce our, fossil fuel imports and also save foreign exchanges. So luckily, the government is promoting this. They are facilitating this. We are trying to build up our first biofuel plant here in Hyderabad. And we will sell this gas to City Gas Distribution Company in Hyderabad, which is Bhaginagar Gas Limited. Even private industries are looking for these fossil fuels so that they can decarbonize their operations. So that is the extent of the problem we are trying to solve with biofuel generation.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar. I'll come back to you again. Moving to Srikanth, you are part of the Phoenix Group, which is one of the largest commercial real estate player in Hyderabad, right? We talked about zero waste, we talked about solar to clean energy to carbon credits, and of course, an organic waste and whatnot. And you have built multiple large IT campuses, right? So as a Phoenix Group, what is that you've been doing, and not only that, but also what are the challenges that are still out there for you to tackle?
Yeah, thank you, Bipin, and thank you, HYSEA, for giving me the opportunity. And most importantly, first let me thank Ram Reddy Garu for staying by for such a long time, and we can learn from that. Like, learning is a continuous process. He being a master of all these things, still want to listen from us. We are just, putting stuff. Coming back to the topic, Bipin, I would like to just go back and to mention that, it all started when we first started delivering one building. Initial days when my business development team was talking to one of the MNCs, they were talking how efficient is a building. My efficient building means, what do you mean? I have 1 lakh square feet, 2 lakh square feet, I can accommodate 1,000 seats, 2,000 seats. They said, I'm not interested. I'm talking about, what is that you're going to save me? Save me, okay, my business development team thinks that, okay sir, instead of 45 rupees, I'll give 40 rupees. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking almost like, when Ram Reddy sir was experimenting and where he said he lost money and those were the days. When people started understanding what exactly the green buildings are, ESG and all United Nations terms, and that forget about it. Now, what is that you're going to give to the future? That is what is the entire essence of this particular conference as well. So there where we started, okay, now, then we started understanding. When we spoke to the client, he said, boss, I'm talking about my cost, my camp cost. The moment you take a building, the rent is fine. But how efficient, as far as the energy is concerned, energy is of different resources. So are you going to give the regular thing and say the government is giving to 1 rupee tariff less than other things? No, it's beyond that. So that is when we started getting into this. did a lot of research. We had a separate team to make our building efficient. Now, I would proudly claim that Phoenix is one of the first builders to start the steel constructions in Hyderabad, including residential. And I would like to take start from where my earlier developer just trying to search him. Upstream conversations. Upstream conversations are very, very important, which we have been doing it for the last 1.5 decades. So we understand the need of a client, and we tell to our architect and the main consultant, these are the things what we need. It's not steel stuck on the structure of the building. It should be when we way forward, the futuristic. When talk, most of the people our building is futuristic. It's not that. Futuristic in what sense? Futuristic in the sense is like I'm saying that. I was also talking to our vendors about supply chain. We were talking about how best you can give me a product when I buy a mortar with you, a bricks with you, a steel with you. How efficient is your production? So that is the kind of understanding we have. And very soon you will be listening to green steel. You'll be listening to green cement. Very short, because innovation has become an in thing now. We can't afford to wait for things. So no, when talking about Phoenix and innovation go hand in hand. Even in your case, when you started your conversation, HYSEA, you were talking about e-energy, e-waste, e-mobility. All this put together is my G infrastructure, that is green infrastructure. We are here to deliver that with this entire combination of it. Coming back to the way we plan at our place, like when we talk to the client, because it's a competitive field, my other competitors are complementing my business also. So when we negotiate, we tell them what is the saving 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We charge a rental at a premium. Suppose my other company is giving 65 rupees, I'm giving my space 75 rupees. I'm showing them a profit of 20 rupees down the lane. So that is the beauty of how you design a product. Thanks to the entire once again ECG models and and we don't take this platinum rated IGBs just for heck of it. We do practice it. And we were the first people to showcase it to the Telangana government, Andhra government, and many of the international trade houses, also global bodies, come and done a case study with us. So that particular sense, I was trying to invite T-Hub innovators, entrepreneurs here to do some case studies, and we want to learn from them. So we don't want to restrict ourselves and say, like either somebody said, we don't want to restrict onto that particular gamut. World is such big, so the more and more you think, the more and more you innovate. We really don't know where I'm going to save or spend now. So that is what is the basic formula what we're going to adopt. So with this, I think there's a huge scope in this particular field. The more and more you work on it, more and more you're sowing for the future. Forget about the millions you earn, but what is the real, ask this about the way asset you give to the future is this what? The environment, the green environment. The children should breathe green. The children should live in a green environment. This is what is the background of Phoenix growing such fast with the fantastic buildings. Thank you, Hitesh.
So one add-on question that I have, Srikanth, for you. See, when you talk about the going green, right, the long-term ownership value, I think the case studies are that it's actually good in favor of the owner, right? But as a builder upfront, your capex should be higher than if you're not going green. So as a business house, how do you balance out the initial higher capex versus the customer incentives in the long term and still be able to run a profitable business and still focus on innovation?
That's a business secret you're asking me. Still, I would like to answer for the ecology factor. See, just now sir has said, I just learned one word from economics, carbonomics. I'm spelling it right, sir? Economics, yeah, good. Thank you, sir. So, the way when I talk to my client, in fact, they demand me. It's not me I'm offering. Nowadays, MNCs, most of the clients, their awareness is far, far ahead. So we are learning from them, we are trying to deliver them. So when I'm able to deliver them, there are no questions asked once I deliver them. I'm giving them the product what they need, which is futuristic, which is efficient. Whatever they need, I'm giving 15 years from ahead. So no questions asked. So I'm saving my business secret as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Srikanth. That's a beautiful segue for me to ask Rohit, because you talked about the customer perception, not just acquisition cost, but the customers are very interested in understanding the CAM, the running cost, correct? And then Rohit's company has been doing some wonderful work in terms of particularly the air conditioning and the HVAC system. How do you kind of reduce the CAM? So Rohit, what has been the traction in the industry that you've seen so far? And your work is largely with what? The large tech parks, the hospitality, hotel groups. What kind of traction are you seeing? And how are you able to actually deliver tangible, quantifiable value to your customers?
Sure. First thing, I would like to thank HYSEA and T-Hub for inviting me, and it's a pleasure sharing the stage with esteemed, knowledgeable people here. When we look at energy, right, in Zobia, like internally, so we look at it in three aspects. So the generation, transmission, and the usage. So when we started up, it was easy for us to look at how the usage patterns are happening. And a few things which we have found out with respect to energy is, prices are always increasing and things like that. But when you take buildings into consideration, 1/3 of global emissions are from them, and electricity is the major reason for that. So we wanted to look at why, if it is so heavy problem, why there are not many technologies coming up. One thing is, most energy efficient technologies, they require either capex or a lot of infrastructural changes. And this discourages most buildings to take it up, because they wouldn't want their operations to get affected. So that is where we have developed our products. So if you can see on the screen, so we have got two sets of products, which we call them as SaverX and Soul. So SaverX, it's exclusively for large buildings like this, grade A buildings, grade A and B buildings. So what this does is, there is an AI algorithm on the back end which optimizes the usage of HVAC systems. Why specifically HVAC systems? Because in commercial buildings like this, like 70 to 80% energy consumption is from these HVAC systems. And one problem, like as was pointed out earlier, so the thermal comfort, right? So you always want to put it at 21 degrees, say 18 degrees or 22, it's up to the user. But given these scenarios, how do I still save energy? So that is where this product comes into the picture, where it can integrate with your existing systems like BMS systems and still deliver those savings right from day one. And as we were developing this, the other aspect which we have seen is on the supply end, right? So you got multiple machineries or equipments, not just in commercial buildings, in industries as well. And electricity is mostly like a unknown factor, right? You can't see it with the eye. So what happens is, like, you can't even see those inefficiencies happening and things like that. So that is where the Soul product, as the name suggests, it lets you know internally what's happening. And it addresses most of the industries and small and mid-sized spaced buildings as well, wherein they can benchmark their usage, or if there are any appliances that are going to go bad, they get to know things like this. And this wholly operates on a wireless IoT network. But yeah, so as we were developing this, what we found was how do we make sure that it is scalable enough as well. So one thing is, we work with companies who hold a portfolio of buildings, but we also work or partner with companies which are into facility management, BMS providers, utilities, not exactly in India, but because they are state run, but with utilities as well, or HVAC OEMs as well. So wherein we have worked with two of the companies where they provide these room air conditioners, which we see in all our homes. But how do we make sure they are energy efficient as well? You might have seen this BEE 5-star.
So if you don't mind, Rohit, I just interruption. So you're essentially kind of talking about a business model where you are, quote unquote, nearly guaranteeing savings, right? So in terms of business model, are you actually still asking the customer to pay you, or are you saying that I'm going to save you X and therefore we just split the savings? What's been your model, and where is the uptick coming from the customers?
So one thing which we have observed is we wanted to remove that capex part. So that is where we have been operating on OPEX part with a refundable deposit to start off. And the other thing which we have observed a few months ago is when we price our products based on the savings, because most of the clients we work with, they have these budgets for the products they procure with respect to climate and things like this. So you wouldn't want those numbers changing every month, because energy consumption is always going to change. So what we do is like a subscription, a fixed amount every month, and there the client will save.
Wonderful. Thank you. So Vivek, we've heard a lot about business models. We've heard about the cost, the capex and the opex, everything. And coming from venture capital side, while everybody talks about green, right? But you as a VC firm has a mandate to always give anywhere from 20 to 28% IRR to your LPs. So in terms of the VC world, are you seeing some genuine interest in investing in ESG space, or to put it very bluntly, still a lip service? What's your take on that?
I think it's beyond lip service now. However, I think there is still some more work to be done, because a lot of the companies who are coming and presenting themselves as solution providers, and I think a lot of them are exceptions here, so I don't mean people who are here, but a lot of them are still scratching the surface. And I think there is a need to deep dive to understand what is the work going on. And I go back to the question you had asked earlier about, let's take an example of statutory compliance, for example. I think as a country, we started work in plastic, which is the largest space, for example, starting a regulatory change, which happened about 4 or 5 years ago with EPR being introduced. And today in the plastic world, EPR is a very large space. But having said that, and I think many people who understand that space well, I'm sure Mr. Rami Reddy will understand that space well. Today, the true work happening in EPR space versus a lot of places where there is a paper trail around EPR happening, and how much of it is the real work and how much of it is just a paper trail. I think that is where the secret, so to say, lies. And I think a lot of the investors or the VCs or PE funds today are wanting to understand that space better, to understand that is this real work happening, and are we in line with utilizing technology to the best possible manner in studying, understanding, analyzing and looking at the future, so that a scalable model can be produced there. So I think tech is a very, very clear trend. So if anyone is talking about it, the questions that are being asked is, let's understand the depth, let's understand the technology, and let's understand the scalability. But having said that, I think it is a very, very important parameter, because all the LPs, all of the investors, whether they are large funds or HNIs or family offices, it's very important that they are asking these questions. So when they sit down and we present an investment to them saying we are looking at investing in this company, a lot of the questions being asked are revolving around ESG. Saying, and human capital amongst the ESG is one of the largest piece that people are asking questions around. That what kind of work is being done on the human capital? Are they following the rules? Are they doing all that? And I think one last piece, while still staying with statutory, is also to look at the future. Because so far, most spaces statutory is seen as present or the past.
Right.
Whereas in the ESG space, I think the need to have an eye on the future is far more important. And going back, let's say, to the EPR topic, today EPR is only on a certain category of waste. But there is already discussion that oil should come into a EPR category. There is a discussion on textile which should come into the EPR category. So our startups and our companies already beginning to look at those sectors, because that's where the future lies. Plastic is important, but a lot of people are already in that space. So I think those would be what I would think are the thought process going on. But having said that, I think ESG is a very, very critical perspective when you look at it. When I wear a investor's hat, I think it is a very important risk mitigation tool. It's a very important brand tool, because a lot of you go and study the litigation that has happened on a lot of the firms, whether large or small. If there was a very cadence, governance-oriented ESG that was applied, then a lot of them may not have happened. And I think from that perspective, investors are very, very keen and looking at that.
So in fact, what you said, it's very interesting that you're seeing that a lot of the LPs are actually kind of wanting to understand the ESG space and are looking at the human capital, right, which is very, very encouraging. Having said that, I'm sure it's also encouraging for a lot of startups in the ecosystem. If you were to just drill it down, right, and say what are the 3 things that a startup entrepreneur should think about before they come to pitch for a VC funding? What are the top 3 things in your mind?
So I think one very clearly is a solid, transparent reporting and a matrix mechanism, so that they can go deeper than just we are ESG compliant or here's what we are doing. And we saw some of the startups talk about it. For example, the HYSEA, and you were talking about the background checks that you can do. What is the energy conservation and how you're measuring it and what does it result in? Or even what Shrikant talked about from a long-term perspective. So one is that what is the measurability that you can bring and demonstrate to people. The second, I think, is transparency, that what and how are we getting the data? Where is the data coming from and how much can we trace that data? So is there a traceability or is this a manual data that I am feeding in and then showing you a bunch of graphs at the back? So the traceability is the second piece. And I think the third piece is the human aspect of it. That, what people are going to ask is that, what are we doing? And this is where I think that, the 3 levels, the scope 3 comes in very, very interestingly here, that, what are we doing around that? Especially in the waste management space, for example, a lot of it is outsourced. Right. Whether it's the corporate or even some of the waste management companies, they are themselves outsourcing, or the municipal corporations. So how well is the scope 3 people aspects being taken care in case you are in that space? So I would think those 3 would be what I would think are the top 3.
Sure. Thank you. Moving on to Ganges, one of the things, I don't know where I read it, but I distinctly remember that there was a paper I was reading where they said the last 2 world wars were actually fought because of economic reasons. And the expectation is that whenever a 3rd world war, if it ever happens, would actually be fought for water. Right? That's the sort of paper I read quite a few years back, and it just stuck me in my mind. And it's very interesting that you're actually in the water treatment, STP area, and you come up with a very, I wouldn't say unique, but more like innovative, very different sort of approach to sewage treatment plants. And you also start getting some traction, correct? And that seems to be a phenomenally large problem that everybody has a problem. STP, whether it's communities, whether it's large industrial estates, whether it is tech parks, everybody has to have water treatment. So is it like you have a phenomenally large market just waiting for you to go grab it, or are you struggling to get the market?
Very interesting question and well put. Today, across the country, we are severely challenged by water security. When I touch this subject, it's not about not having good water. If you have 1 billion liters of water in a lake, just about 1 million liters go there, touch that 1 billion liters, makes that entire 1 billion liters unusable, unsafe. This is unfortunate reality of how much we are unable to handle the wastewater that is a result of rapid urbanization and the way we have launched our lifestyles. Now when we deploy complex sewage treatment systems or effluent treatment systems, that was the choice that we made when we began industrialization in 30-40 years ago. But long way we have come only to realize that today STPs and ETPs are the 6th largest contributors to the GHG emissions. And the entire ESG chapter is all about how do we minimize that and run away, as far as from this 1.5 degree temperature raise, which is going to catastrophically affect us. So the choices that we make to deploy in addressing one problem shouldn't create a secondary issue. That is what precisely happening with sewage treatment and effluent treatment. That we have not looked at certain alternatives. So I feel water security is in our hands, that if we are able to contain our used water properly and treat it well, we are fairly okay. The next part is the rainwater. How do we actually leverage that? As far as our work is concerned, you asked about, is it still an idea? Are you getting traction? Are you struggling? Well, middle of COVID,
sitting home, not knowing where the world will head. I was wondering, what did I do? I had a beautiful career in US. I wanted my son to grow in India, so I brought him back before he's 5-year-old. And I was part of a sustainable community building a large campus for 5 years as a volunteer. Then came an opportunity to look at sewage treatment in that campus, and that brought me into this field that yes, there are alternative ways to treat sewage. And I found that this is a great idea. With that great idea in heart, I traveled around the country, almost 5 lakh kilometers. Military stations, residential colonies, schools, colleges, institutions, the big names. I found the most corrupt practices. Sustainability is at convenience. If it is cheaper, economical, I'll try to adopt. And that also if it gives you other edges. So with this, we struggled a lot till about 2021. We were at a point where we were not sure, when will the country wake up to the reality that the entire rest of the world, who has spoiled the world faster, have gone quickly at solutions in fixing it, and we woke up late in that sense. So these solutions that are nature-based solutions are century old. They've been there in India and others have learned it, but they have engineered it so well. Now that we are able to bring back such solutions to India, you can see this image that such a complex sewage treatment system could be replaced by this system. This is sitting right next to the bedrooms and balconies. If I put a development here and sell the central plot to STP and say that here is my STP, how many of you will buy the plot? Any one of you? It's very difficult because the nature of the treatment itself is so complex, and there are orders around it because you're exposing the water to the ambient air, and every time wind blows it picks up the aroma free of cost. Yeah. Well, so we brought these solutions and we struggled. Now we got to a level of engineering advancement in the system that instead of using a 5 square meter to treat 1,000 liters, we are able to treat this below 1 square meter. Most of your communities that have gardens, give me one garden, your STP will be done. And you would not know. The ETV fellow came to interview me at this place and he told me, where do I set up the camera? I said, go put up the STP. He was roaming around for 15 minutes, not understanding where the STP is. And this garden is one of the 5 gardens that the community has. So similarly, for the lakes and water bodies, we have taken a pledge that unless we become a rich country where we can solve every problem, which is far from reality. Our lakes are going to receive sewage no matter what we do. Our water bodies are going to receive sewage. So we figured out ways how we can fix the natural biome within the water body, that a water body can fix itself by itself because the natural bacteria can do the job. It's just that we have overloaded it. So we understood the nutrient cycles and we brought in level of engineering. Today I have a 25-member team. We work across the nation. We cannot run all along the nation because I did that crazy job for 5 years. Now I understood that we cannot run every day, everywhere. So we set up channel partners across the country. We are about 3 of them right now. We are looking for 10 more. We got about 6 crore turnover this year. 24 will be closing somewhere around 10 crores. Following year is looking like crazy, like somewhere between 100 to 200 crores. Because Madhya Pradesh state has said, first state to declare that for all the towns that are below 1 lakh population, we will go with nature-based solutions because the energy cost is huge in sewage treatment and it requires qualified people to babysit these treatment systems. That is not possible in towns. So for a good reason they chose, and we came one of the finalists in that KPMG evaluation. So we are seeing a rapid growth now, and it's really a struggle now, a good problem to have. Then I'm looking at systems, I'm looking at investors, I'm looking at how we can engineer these systems and manage this whole thing differently. Money doesn't motivate me as much, but we have to be profitable. So we are also looking at creating a social impact enterprise for profit to see that this goes to every village. This goes to as much as I may be dreaming a lot, but what drives us is that every project we do, it provides for carbon sequestration, it reduces emissions, the system works for 30 years, a gardener can run it. Next to COVID, my systems are going to be run beautifully. There is no issue because we don't need technical people to support them. This is the brief story.
Wonderful. I think you really hit the nerve there. If you can make the system to work smoothly with quote unquote unskilled people, then it becomes very sustainable. That's beautiful.
One important point is that a lot of people, most of us, when we buy a car, the first question we ask, except for the 1% top who do not worry about money, what is the cost of the car? This next question is, kitna dega? Is there anybody who bought a car without asking that question? So life cycle cost plays a major role whether we can sustain our lives with an iPhone or Android or STP. A 1 MLD of sewage treatment plant today costs standalone 3 crores, but it takes 13 to 14 crores in 15-year lifespan to run it, which most of this upstream between CBRE coming and taking over the STP from a developer, they will realize how much money is going to drain out of their corpus. Our STPs are saving literally 60% on the operations cost. A 3 crore is draining you 13 crores. My 3 crores is saving you 7 crores compared to conventional system. This is the financial equation. Environment sustainability of low energy, low emissions, carbon sequestration, social acceptability, being able to tolerate and be around it happily, economic viability. These 3 things are completely met with any solution that we have, whether for STPs or ATPs or for water bodies.
Thank you. Srikanth, would you like to add something? Please.
Same thing. Thanks. When I wanted to ask for the outlet of treated water and all, it costed me, as I said, pretty big amount apart from other charges. When I went for a good source of treating the water and retaining much of it, there was no need of outletting the water. That was a saving, huge saving. And what I invested in STP is almost like 30% of what I'm supposed to spend off the boundary. So offsite infrastructure government supposed to provide. So I saved on that and I spent on here. So it's state saving. So people see what I'm trying to say is at the same time we should take this opportunity to go for the awareness thing as well. The infrastructure wise on which probably we can do it together. The more and more we can talk about the innovations, what we can do, what good can do. Forget about the money and all. But if it's doing good for the society and adding for the ESG, it's good.
Thank you, Srikanth. I know we are running behind the curve, so I'll stop over here. But before I stop, there's one question, Ram Reddy Garu, that has come for you from the audience, which is about talking about how significant is the regulatory framework in making ESG more mainstream. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, first of all, very good interactions. Very happy to listen to everyone. Very meaningful. As I told, actually, whatever we have done in the past, there is a lot of gap. Here is an opportunity. In all these spaces where what we have listened, the inadequacies that have gone into our system are giving us an opportunity to convert into a great business for future. Every building that is constructed provides opportunity in all these spaces what we are talking. Let me tell you on the water side. While disposal aspect we are talking that it's going to give us cost reduction, but if you look at completely recycling it back, what is the cost of fresh water that we are looking at? So if you can replace the treated water for your consumption, you see the cost economics. You are going to save huge on that. So for that, I mean, there is a business model that is already established. So you can certainly look at it. On the waste side also, zero waste. Actually, this is the only way we have to move forward, especially for our country. Because if you look at China has built big, but we are yet to start our journey. So we should, if we can bring in our best practices, learning from the mistakes what they have done, I think we have a great opportunity. Coming back on the regulatory side, I must tell you, Government of India is certainly now in the last two terms, last 10 years, I can see they started really putting the best practices. See, everywhere they are trying to give solutions towards the 360-degree solutions they are trying to bring in around recycle, reuse, recovery, reduction. These sort of methods they are really encouraging. They're also trying to see solutions at the design stage, how best the consultants can be brought in and encouraged. And they're making it easy for especially when I saw the industrial and urban solutions, they are trying to provide us with solutions at a individual industry level or a developer level, and also trying to encourage systems which certainly at a policy level and the government level, regulatory level, HYSEA solutions which are really encouraging the industry and every stakeholder. Regulatory level, I can tell you every rule that is getting framed is coming handy for the industry and every business house to really focus on the ESG in a big way. Just to give you some example, which in fact we were advocating for these things. Single environmental clearance, we are talking for every industrial park. And which government now is supporting in a big way. The environmental department is really coming out. Previously, every industry has to go with individual environmental clearance. Every product they are supposed to get clearances. All those things are getting eliminated. Same thing for townships. The entire environmental solutions are being worked out, keeping in the sustainability in mind. So I can see that the actions and the initiations that are coming from government are really going to support the industry in a big way.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to MyStartuptv.